Everyone, it's Aesah, and welcome to my guide for Vertical Exotech. I personally think this is the most underrated comp right now, but because it's underrated, there aren't that many people playing it, and I think it's also not very optimized. I've been playing a decent bit, so I'll try to share with you guys what I know, but I'm not super confident in some of the things. But yeah, let's just get into it. So, Exotech is a pretty simple comp. Honestly, there's only 7 Exotech units and there's no 5 cost. So you pretty reliably hit this board on level 8 when you roll down. Obviously, finding one copy of Zeri and Sejuani is going to be the hardest part. Um, and normally you will play Kindred. She is only a 1 cost, but she does give your synergy to both Jhin and Zeri, who are going to be your main itemized carries. I would mainly look to play Exotech if you have good Exotech items. Personally, I think the Exotech items are not balanced very well at all, honestly. If you look at the average placements, I don't want to overuse stats, but I think all of these at the top are quite a lot better than the ones at the bottom. So Hollowbow, Cybercoil, and Hyperfanes I think are the weakest. Hyperfanes is the best for Nefiri if you somehow have a 3-star Nefiri, but normally you're not going to play around her. Again, you just tempo with this line and you play around Jhin and Zeri as your main carries. Flux Capacitor is extremely good for Zeri, and Pulse Stabilizer is good for both of them. Pulse Stabilizer basically is the same as an Infinity Edge, but it also gives an execute effect, so just having that somewhere on your team adds a lot of value. Uh, the Chassis and Repulsor Lantern are they're about the same. They're just both tank items. They're both pretty comparable, and they're just nice to have. Just you could pretty much just think of them as like generic tank items. This one has some more synergy with shields, and this one has some more synergy with max HP. But yeah, basically, if you have 3 out of these 4 top ones, I would be pretty excited to try to play towards Exotech. So early game, if you have Nitro opener, Nitro synergizes really, really well with Exotech. So in the early game, you actually don't even need to open with Exotech. If you have the Nitro opener, that's going to be really strong, and eventually you can pivot out. This is the reason it's really nice is you can slowly add in units one at a time, and you can keep these units in your board when you transition to Exotech. So you add the Jax, then you can add in either like a Nefiri for Nidalee, or you could add in a Jhin that synergizes with Kindred, and you can kind of just like sequentially add these units. Even Mordekaisers will give Techie with Shyvana. So there's a lot of synergy in this board, and eventually, once you get level 8, you find Sejuani, Zeri, and Varus. I usually don't play around Varus too much. He is nice because he has a stun, but I find it's hard to activate the Executioner trait. I think the only really good Executioner you want to play is when you're really capping out with Urgot at level 9. But yeah, once you find these units, you can drop the Nitros, except you keep the Kindred. So that's another reason opening from Nitro is kind of nice. Make sure you don't have too many units in your backline, otherwise your Zeri will start dashing in the third row. If you only have like these 3, it's fine. But if for whatever reason, like you have like a range golem, or you got like a Call to Chaos Zeke Stummy or something, you have too many units in the backline, I would just put like Kindred up here. She's not too important. Just to make sure your Zeri has space to dash around. You really don't want your Zeri dashing into the third row. Positioning wise, it doesn't really matter too much, but Neferi's the highest damage, least tanky, so I would usually put Sejuani on the outside, Mordekaiser on the outside, Neferi in the middle. This doesn't matter too much. Your Sejuani positioning in this comp is going to be extremely, extremely important. And honestly, Sejuani is one of the main reasons that this comp is good, because with 7 Exotech, she gains almost 700 HP, which is quite a lot, obviously, and she also gains 27% attack speed, which you might think like attack speed doesn't matter that much on Sejuani, and honestly, you're probably right, but this 27% attack speed tends to just be just enough to help Sejuani get multiple casts off, where if you're playing like 7 Anima Squad, and you have a Sejuani even with 3 items, oftentimes she's only going to cast once, but in the Exotech comp, she can actually cast multiple times, especially if you have one of the good Exotech items. Um, yeah, I think Just to recap, Sejuani is definitely one of the reasons this comp is really good. And she throws her EMP at her target, and it's within 3 hexes. So it's very, very important that you hit your enemy carry. So let's say your opponent has a carry in the corner. If you target a unit here, it's 3 hexes, so it'll hit 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's a 3 hex radius. So anything within 3 hexes away. But if you have Sejuani here, and they have their front line, like maybe they have like something that looks like this. It'll be a 50-50 who she attacks. So if she targets the Leona, 3 hexes will Sunzai. If she targets the Lao, it won't. So because of that, I usually like to position Sejuani either here or here. That'll make sure it hits the enemy carry. You can also do far corner, honestly, but I usually do one of these 2 spots to hit the corner. Item-wise, the Exotech items. So even if you have Hyperfanes, even though it's technically an inferior item, Hollow Bow is technically a Varus item. I tend to still just itemize Jhin or Zeri. If I did have these items frequently, I would just do Hollow Bow on Zeri or this thing on Jhin, unless I had something better. If you do get 3 better Zeri items, you can just move your Hollow Bow off. But Hollow Bow is like pretty bad without Executioner because yeah, it kind of synergizes with Executioner, but honestly, I don't really understand this item's design, to be perfectly honest, because it gives you plus critical strike chance for 5 seconds, but Varus has 75 mana in a kind of a long animation, so he actually doesn't benefit from the 40% crit chance for his next ability. Zeri, on the other hand, will stack this multiple times with herself. Because it's giving you so much crit, it's really nice with this one's, which is kind of like Infinity Edge. Otherwise, just having an Infinity Edge is nice. But yeah, ideally, you just don't have Hollow Bow. Hollow Bow and Hyperfanes are definitely not that good. Cyber Coil is pretty bad, but it's good enough that you'll still want to put it on your Sejuani. These other 2 items are both really good. I would just put them on your strongest tank, which if you have Sejuani, it's Sejuani. If not, it's usually Mordekaiser. This item that's like the Infinity Edge, you could put it on Jhin or Zeri. It's good on both. I think if you have one of each, I would prefer Jhin slightly more. Like if you have Infinity Edge, or like you're just debating between like maybe you have these 2 kind of interchangeable items, right? I prefer it on Jhin because it has an execute effect. Zeri only attacks 1 target at a time. Even all her clones will shoot the same thing. So Jhin has a chance to kind of like spread it to multiple targets. Other items that are really good. Rageblade is pretty good on Zeri. I actually think it's a little overrated. She doesn't need it in this comp because Exotech and Rapid Fire gives you so much attack speed already. But it's definitely good. I would say it's her best item, but I think it's like overrated. Whereas it's not like mandatory like it is. Like I made the Twisted Fate reroll I think yesterday. Twisted Fate needs Rageblade. Zeri doesn't need this. Especially in this comp where she has so much attack speed already. But yeah, it's still good. Gunblade is also good, but again, not necessary at all. Infinity Edge is gonna be good on Jhin, good on Zeri. It's also good on Zeri. Giant Slayer, all these like generic items are all gonna be fine. Last Whisper, I tend to prefer not building Last Whisper because I really want to build Even Shroud. The reason is, even if you position like this, for example, it's very possible your opponent, in quite a lot of comps, they'll have a full front line. So let's say uh let's just say that they do have a full front line. Your Zeri and Jhin, if you position like this, are actually going to attack different units. So you're not going to be able to reliably have the Last Whisperer hit the same target. Even if you do something like this, if you kill this unit, your Zeri might have dashed over here. So it's like if your Jhin has Last Whisperer or your Zeri, they might not be attacking the same target. So I tend to prefer Even Shroud. Make sure it's on the same side of the unit of your Jhin and Zeri starting location. Of course, Zeri can still dash away, but what can you do? Yeah, so this is your level 8 board tank items. I think Redemption is really, really good in this comp. First of all, you don't really need tiers for your backline, so you usually have an excess of tiers, which is actually works out perfectly because Vow, these are probably the 2 best tank items you can make, and you don't need tiers for your backline, so this is kind of perfect. They're both really, really good. Redemption synergizes with Exotech's high HP, and Val is just really good on Sejuani. Getting her early cast off is really important, even in the mirror match if your opponent has a Sejuani. If you cast first, oftentimes you can stun their Sejuani and then kill it before, like during the stun, potentially. Um, so this is a level 8 board. I think it can be tempting to drop Kindred for legendaries if you hit it. I think if you hit like a 2-star like Urgot, you should probably play it. Maybe, honestly, and just itemize him. Yeah, probably, but like it's really close. Both of these traits are pretty important. Rapid fire and marksman. If you have 3 on Jhin and 3 on Zeri, Kindred is just so efficient activating both of those traits. So I'm usually keeping Kindred unless you hit like a 2-star legendary. And then maybe you can even consider going down to 5 Exotech potentially. At level 9, there's honestly quite a lot of things you can hit, which is really nice with this comp because you don't have to fish for one specific legendary. You can just kind of hit like Kabuko will have Bruiser by himself. It's not super important because Exotechs have so much HP already, but he fits in nicely. Aurora will have Dynamo activated, which is really nice. Viego will have Techie activated, really, really good. And I guess Renekton just gives you 3 Bastion, so he's not really anything. But Urgot will have Executioner as well. And Samira will have Amp. So like basically all of these legendaries will already have something activated. Even Garen, I think Garen is extremely good because you can give Rapid Fire to your Jhin, or you can give Marksman to your Zeri. Either one of those is going to be really good. If you don't hit that, you can just like giving Exotech to Garen, for example, and putting 3 items on him, give him a lot of HP. You could give Bastion to Mordekaiser or the Garen himself. Either way, if I were to rate these at 2-star, I think I would probably honestly like Garen the most, just because giving Rapid Fire to Jhin or Marksman to Zeri is just really valuable. The one second best one, I would think either Aurora or Viego. It kind of depends if you have something good to pull in. Viego's Techie bonus is really good just for the 10% damage reduction. This is just extremely strong. Viego same side if it hits the enemy carry. That's just so impactful. Aurora, Dynamo whole team, and then pulling in a unit. If you have extra AD items, Urgot with Executioner is nice, especially if you somehow have Urgot and Garen, giving him Exotech is really good. Samira, I find Samira in today's meta is just like too contested, but if you do somehow hit a Samira, kind of interchangeable with Urgot. Yeah. Another thing, as always, you're going to want anti-heal. Bows are pretty premium in this comp, so you're not going to end up with red buff too often. Morello is fine, but I think I tend to end up with Sunfire the most, which actually works out because a lot of other comps prefer Morello because they chip down the backline. You don't want your opponent's backline healing up. But this comp is almost entirely front to back. Very, very little of your damage will hit the backline, so you don't really need to anti-heal the backline. It doesn't really matter. They're pretty much going to be full health for the most part. Like, obviously, like your Sejuani will hit them. Maybe Jin's thing might bounce like one time to them. But most of the damage is to the initial target, with a fourth bounce as well as the initial bounce. Basically doing 3 times as much to the initial target as any other target. So yeah, you don't really need backline anti-heal, so I find Sunfire being really good as well. Okay, anything I missed? I talked about Nitro opener. It doesn't have to be a Nitro opener. I think any 3 Exotech opener tends to be pretty strong, especially if your first item is good. Just a 3 trait that gives you a full item is just gonna be really nice. So if we just find like Jax, Neferi, Jhin, that's probably gonna be the most common because I mean the other units are just more expensive. There's 2 3 costs and 2 4 costs, so most likely you'll have this. Just playing like another Bastion is going to be good. Something like this is going to be completely fine. On level 5, you can add in Marksman. You could add in Amp if you're carrying your Neferi. Um, you could add in Dynamo if you don't have Marksman. If for whatever reason you have Mordekaiser, which obviously could happen as well, something like this. You could add in Techie. You could add in Bruiser. You could do Bruiser instead. If you have like 1-star Jax, 1-star Mordekaiser, you could play something like this, and then add a backline unit in at level 5. all going to be good options. Yeah. Again, this comp is pretty unexplored. I've shared a lot of my thoughts about how I would recommend to play it, but there might be some meta developments in the coming days as the community kind of picks up on this comp and plays it more. But yeah, I think this comp is super underrated. So if you're looking for something that can play, and honestly, you can go first, even against like Cap Strat Amp boards if you have the right setups. Go with this. One last thing I didn't mention yet is Exotech. If you guys played Scrap from last set, it's really good with more items just because at 7 Exotech, every single item is giving you 225 HP, 9% attack speed. That's basically a bow and a belt and a half, so it's like 2.5 extra components you can kind of think of, whereas a full item is about worth like 6 to 7. So it basically makes every single item you build about like somewhere between 1/3 or 1/2 times stronger. So just having a lot of items is just good in this comp. That's gonna wrap it up on this video for 7 Exotech. If you have any questions, let me know in the Discord. Thanks for watching.